Shaping up to be a rather complicated month, to say the least, for Congress. Lawmakers returning to the Hill next week with a lot to get done, not a lot of time to do it. Debate over a resolution to take military action, of course, in Syria, now the top priority. But they also have two major budget deadlines in the not-too-distant future. Justin Sayfie is the publisher of SayfieReview.com, former spokesman for Jeb Bush. Doug Schoen is a Fox News contributor, former pollster for Bill Clinton. And I've been anxious to talk to you, Doug, because you were with President Clinton at a time in which he faced a very similar situation. Talk to us about what went into that. What happened?
Sure. Well, in 1999, I think, as many remember, the president made a decision to bomb Serbia, given the incursion that the Serbs made into Kosovo. And bottom line, the president, I remember anguishing about the decision, but saying basically after the brutality in Srebrenica, I guess it was about 4 years prior, and the abuse by the Serbs of the norms of civil and human rights. Bottom line, the president, after the late Richard Holbrooke offered warning after warning to Slobodan Milosevic, said, I must act, I have to act. He did act. And not only did it get the Serbs to cease and desist, it led ultimately within a year, Greg, to regime change. I'm proud to have been part of both efforts. It's one of the finest moments of President Clinton's career, and I'd like to be able to take a small amount of credit for regime change in Serbia myself.
As you should. And so he had been hailed then and now for an act of courage in doing that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Justin, let me go to you. You know, look, we talked to our correspondent over in Israel, who said, look, they're saying this isn't an act of courage, this is an act of cowardice. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying that, they're saying that. What do you say?
Well, I think that the debate that the president is putting into Congress is an interesting question. The difference between now and between 1999 is the war in Afghanistan, the terrorist attack on 9/11, and the war in Iraq. Those are defining events in American military and political history in terms of what is the role of the U.S. going to be in the world going forward. And we remember very clearly President Obama, what he campaigned on in 2008 and 2012. So I think the debate that's going to take place, but I can understand the position of our allies across the world. If you're Japan, if you are Israel, if you are allies in areas where you have rogue regimes like North Korea, rogue regimes like Iran that are flouting international law, you are concerned if the President of the United States isn't willing to take quick and prompt action when there is the use of biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons, or if they're being tested and international norms are being violated. That's what's at stake here, and that's why President Obama's decision to go to Congress can be criticized.
You know, Doug, so you told us what Bill Clinton did back then under similar circumstances. You've seen what President Obama is doing now. Is this a pretext, an excuse to, as some would say, sort of weasel out of taking action?
Well, I'm afraid it could be, Greg. I mean, bottom line, the president has a narrative, which is blame Congress and blame the Republicans. And if we don't get a budget deal or a deal on the debt ceiling, he's going to blame Congress and the Republicans. And if we don't get a vote to use military action, it'll be the same refrain. It may be good politics, that remains to be seen, but it's really bad policy, and it puts America, I believe, at risk.
And Justin, you've got an interesting coalition now in Congress of, you know, some sort of neocons. You know, you've got John McCain and other Republicans. And then you've got Nancy Pelosi, who is saying, yes, you know, the president should engage in a military strike. So it's an interesting mix, isn't it? Interesting bedfellows.
Absolutely. Look, the political lines get all scrambled up when you talk about this type of an issue. Again, it's because of what we've been through in the last 10 years, and it's fundamentally about what the U.S. role in the world is going to be when you confront the use of potentially sarin nerve gases we're hearing today take place. So you're going to have Republicans on both sides of the issue. You're going to have Democrats on both sides of the issue. That's what makes the debate so interesting that we're going to see take place in the next few weeks in Congress.
Doug, did President Obama paint himself in a corner, because he famously said before he was elected president that the president does not have power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack. And so there he was, prepared to do it. And somebody must have raised their hand in the Oval Office and said, excuse me, Mr. President, you said you didn't have the authority for this.
Well, sadly, Greg, he's been on both sides of the issue. I mean, he said certainly what you quoted him to say, but he said almost a year ago, slightly more, that if chemical weapons were used, it was a red line that could not be crossed without U.S. action. Well, the red line's clearly been crossed, and there is no U.S. action. Bottom line, they're celebrating in Damascus, I fear, and in Tehran and Pyongyang.
So, Justin,
bottom line, if the
go ahead. I'm sorry.
President gives his word that we're going to do something, to me, it's not an interesting issue for debate. The moral authority of the country is at stake, Greg. If the president says something, he's got to act. This president didn't.
Justin, do you agree with that?
I agree.
America is now losing credibility.
I agree. When the President of the United States makes a statement the way President Barack Obama makes it, and then says, you know what, we need to have a debate on this in Congress, it definitely sends a message of uncertainty around the world, and I fear, makes the world a more dangerous place because it emboldens those who want to test the President, emboldens those who want to test the resolve of the U.S., and that's not a good place for our world to be in.
All right. Justin Sayfie and Doug Schoen, good to see you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
being with
Greg.
us. Good to see you.
Thanks, Greg.